Good evening, dear friend. It's nice to see you again. Or perhaps we're meeting for the very first time. If that's the case, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Samuel Harper. Some folks call me Sam, but most just call me the old storyteller on Willow Lane. I suppose I've carried stories with me for as long as I can remember. I've lived many years, watched many seasons pass, and somewhere along the way, I learned that stories are more than just words. They're memories we borrow, moments we revisit, and sometimes they're gentle lights that keep us company on quiet nights like this one. You'll find me here most evenings, in this little corner, with my lamp glowing, my tea warm, and the night, whispering softly outside the window. Some nights I speak of old neighbors, some nights of forgotten gardens, and sometimes of strange little mysteries that never quite found answers. If you ever feel a little lonely, or simply wish to drift into a peaceful sleep, well, that's why I'm here. To sit with you, to keep you company, and to share a gentle story that settles the heart. So, make yourself comfortable, wrap that blanket around your shoulders, let the day fall behind you, and the quiet night gather around us. I'm Samuel Harper,
Hi.
and it's my pleasure to tell you a story tonight.
Morning returned to Willow Lane without announcing itself. There was no bright sunrise, no confident stretch of golden light across the street. Instead, the sky softened slowly, like a breath being let out after a long night. Pale gray clouds hovered low, pressing gently against the rooftops, as if the day itself wasn't sure it wanted to begin. Hannah Cole woke to the sound of something familiar, but wrong. Not a bird, not the wind. A pause. It was the absence of sound that stirred her first. She lay still beneath her quilt, eyes closed, listening. The house around her felt settled, too settled. No pipes knocking, no distant car engines, no footsteps from a neighbor starting their routine. Even the old clock in the hallway had stopped ticking. Hannah opened her eyes. The ceiling above her looked the same as always, faint water stain near the corner, hairline crack running toward the light fixture. But something about it felt watched. Not actively, just noticed. She sat up slowly, careful not to disturb the quiet. Her bedroom window faced Willow Lane. Normally, by this hour, she would see Mrs. Hargreaves' curtains twitching across the street, or the faint movement of someone letting a dog out. Today, the street lay perfectly still, too perfectly. Hannah moved to the window and pulled the curtain back an inch. Willow Lane stretched out below her like a photograph pinned too long to a wall. Every house stood exactly where it should be. Cars lined the curbs at the same angles as yesterday. The tall oak at the bend in the road didn't sway, even though she could see leaves drifting slowly downward. No wind, but falling leaves. She frowned gently, as though her face itself didn't want to disturb whatever balance the morning held. That was when she noticed the house. 2 doors down, between the Miller place and the narrow white bungalow, stood a structure Hannah was certain hadn't been there before. It wasn't new, that much was clear immediately. The house looked old, older than the rest, its siding weathered into a soft gray, its windows tall and narrow like tired eyes. The porch sagged slightly in the middle, as though it had learned to bend under weight long ago. Ivy climbed one side of the house, thick and deliberate, as if it had been growing there for years. Years Hannah would remember. But she didn't. She stood there, fingers resting against the glass, heart steady but uneasy. She wasn't frightened. Willow Lane didn't do fear, not openly. It did something quieter. It let confusion settle gently, like dust. A flicker of movement caught her eye. At the end of the lane, near the curve where the road disappeared behind trees, someone stood watching. Just a shape at first. Hannah leaned closer. It was a child. No, perhaps not a child. The figure was small, still, dressed in something pale. They stood with their back to the lane, facing the trees, as though listening to something Hannah couldn't hear. Then, slowly, the figure turned its head. Not fully, just enough. Hannah stepped back from the window. When she looked again, the lane was empty. The unfamiliar house remained, silent and patient. Somewhere in the house, the hallway clock began ticking again. By late morning, Willow Lane began pretending to be normal again. Engines started, doors opened and closed. The low hum of routine returned, careful and convincing. Hannah watched it all from her front porch, mug of tea warming her hands, eyes never quite leaving the unfamiliar house. She wasn't the only one who noticed. Mrs. Dalloway, from 3 houses down, paused mid-step during her walk, squinting at the structure as though it had personally offended her. Mr. Keene stood on his driveway longer than necessary, keys forgotten in his hand. Even the miller's dog refused to walk past it, planting its feet and whining softly. Hannah crossed the street. Up close, the house felt heavier, not physically, but in the way certain rooms felt heavier than others, the way silence sometimes carried more weight than sound. The front door was closed, no welcome mat, no mailbox, just a small brass plaque beside the doorframe. It was blank. Mrs. Dalloway approached, her sensible shoes clicking too loudly on the pavement. "Wasn't this house blue?" she asked suddenly. Hannah blinked. "I don't think so." "I'm sure it was," Mrs. Dalloway insisted, folding her arms. "Blue with white trim. Belonged to a couple, quiet ones, no children." Mr. Keene joined them, brow furrowed. "No, it was green, dark green, and empty, has been for years." They all looked at one another. 3 versions, 1 house. "And the windows," Mrs. Dalloway continued slowly, "weren't they wider?" Hannah stared at the tall, narrow panes. They reflected the sky poorly, as though they weren't interested in showing the outside world. "I don't remember this house at all," Hannah said quietly. The words settled between them. Mr. Keene laughed once, short and uncomfortable. "That's ridiculous. We've all lived here for years." "Yes," Hannah agreed, "we have." A faint sound drifted from inside the house. Not a voice, not footsteps, more like a sigh. The 3 of them fell silent. Mrs. Dalloway straightened suddenly. "Well, I suppose it doesn't matter. Houses change. Memory's a funny thing." She walked away before either of them could reply. Mr. Keene followed soon after, glancing back once, then shaking his head as if to dislodge a thought that didn't belong. Hannah remained. She felt drawn, Not forward, not toward the door, but held as though the house had gently closed a hand around her attention. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement in one of the upper windows. A curtain stirred. There had been no curtain moments ago. Hannah stepped back, heart still calm but alert. She wasn't afraid of the house. She was afraid of how easily it was being accepted. The child returned in the afternoon. This time Hannah saw them clearly. She was in her kitchen, rinsing her mug, when the sense came again. That quiet pull, like being gently tapped on the shoulder by something that didn't use hands. She looked out the window. At the far end of Willow Lane, near the trees where the road curved away, the child stood barefoot on the pavement. They were small, maybe 7 or 8, pale hair, cut unevenly, clothes that didn't belong to any season, too thin for cold, too heavy for warmth. They weren't looking at Hannah. They were looking at the unfamiliar house. Hannah stepped outside without putting on her shoes. The pavement felt colder than it should. As she walked, the sounds of the neighborhood softened again. Each step felt slightly delayed, as though the ground needed a moment to decide whether to support her. "Hello?" she called gently. The child turned. Their face was calm, too calm. "You see it too," the child said. Their voice was steady, without curiosity or fear. Hannah stopped a few feet away. "See what?" "The house," the child replied. "The one that remembers." A shiver traced Hannah's spine. Not sharp, just cold. "What do you mean?" Hannah asked. The child tilted their head. It was here before the lane decided what it wanted to be. Hannah swallowed. "Where are your parents?" The child smiled faintly. "Inside." Hannah glanced toward the unfamiliar house. Its windows seemed darker now, deeper. "That house?" Hannah asked. The child nodded. A breeze moved through the trees at last, whispering down the lane. Leaves stirred. The world felt slightly less still, but not safer. "You shouldn't go in," the child added softly. "Not yet." "Why?" Hannah asked. The child looked past her, toward the houses, the people, the routines settling back into place. "Because it's still learning who belongs." The child took a step backward, then another. The shadows near the trees thickened, not darker, just fuller, and the child slipped into them as easily as stepping behind a curtain. Gone. Hannah stood alone at the end of Willow Lane. Behind her, the unfamiliar house waited. That evening, Willow Lane softened into twilight the way it always did, slowly, politely, as if asking permission before letting darkness settle. Hannah stood at her front window longer than usual, watching the unfamiliar house across the street. Its windows glowed faintly now, not with lamplight exactly, but with something duller, more amber, like the memory of light rather than light itself. She hadn't planned to go outside again, but the lane had a way of rearranging plans without ever appearing forceful. When Hannah opened her front door, The air felt heavier than it had earlier, warm and still. The scent of damp wood and ivy drifted across the street, unmistakably coming from the house that wasn't supposed to be there. She crossed slowly. With every step, her thoughts seemed to quiet, not disappear, just move aside, like chairs being pushed back to make space. By the time she reached the porch, her mind felt almost empty. The front door stood ajar. Hannah was certain it had been closed before. She didn't touch it. She simply waited, listening. From inside came a low sound, rhythmic and gentle. Not breathing, not machinery, a pulse. The door creaked open wider on its own. Hannah stepped inside. The air was cooler immediately, carrying the faint smell of old paper and dust, warmed by sun that no longer reached it. The house felt attentive. "Hello?" Hannah whispered. The sound didn't echo, it settled. The hallway stretched farther than it should have. Doors lined both sides, all closed. At the end, a staircase curved upward, its banister polished smooth by hands that felt long gone. As Hannah took another step, the house responded. The floorboard beneath her foot creaked, not loudly, not sharply, but in a way that felt deliberate, like a throat being cleared. She froze. The amber glow deepened, pulsing once, faintly. "I'm just looking," she said softly, unsure why she felt the need to explain herself. Somewhere deeper in the house, something shifted. A door opened, not one she could see, but one she felt. The walls seemed to relax slightly, as though they had been holding their breath. Hannah walked farther in. On a small table near the stairs lay a photograph. She picked it up carefully. It showed Willow Lane, but not as she knew it. The houses were fewer, the trees thicker, the road narrower. And standing in the center of the image were people Hannah almost recognized. Almost. Their faces were blurred, not by age or damage, but as though the photograph itself had chosen not to remember them clearly. Behind her, the door closed. Not slammed, not locked, just closed. Hannah turned slowly. The hallway behind her looked the same, but it felt farther away now, as though she had stepped deeper than her body suggested. The house pulsed again, and Hannah understood, suddenly and clearly. It wasn't trapping her, it was listening. The next morning, Willow Lane forgot how to behave. It began with small things, things easy to excuse. Mrs. Dalloway's roses bloomed overnight, fully open and heavy with scent, though they had been bare stems the day before. The Miller boy missed the school bus despite standing at the curb on time. Mr. Keene's car refused to start, then did, then stopped again, as if reconsidering. By afternoon, patterns unraveled more visibly. Mail arrived twice to some houses and not at all to others. Streetlights flickered in daylight. A woman Hannah didn't recognize walked down the lane, nodded politely to everyone, and then vanished behind the unfamiliar house, never reappearing. Hannah watched it all from her porch. The house across the street seemed unchanged, calm, patient, as if it were letting the lane stumble on its own. She felt tired in a way sleep hadn't touched, not exhaustion, something deeper, like her sense of time had been stretched thin. When she checked the clock inside, it read 3:12. It stayed that way for nearly an hour. Later, she found Mrs. Dalloway standing in the middle of the road, staring down at her feet. "I think I walked this way already," the woman said, her voice uncertain, "but I don't remember arriving." Hannah gently guided her back to the sidewalk. Inside her own home, things felt slightly misaligned. Drawers resisted opening. Rooms felt longer than usual. A faint, almost familiar hum lingered beneath the quiet. That evening, Hannah noticed something new. Lights were turning on inside the unfamiliar house, room by room, slowly, as though someone were walking through it, deciding where to pause. Hannah felt a pull again, stronger this time. She resisted. Instead, she sat at her dining table and tried to write notes, observations, anything to anchor the day. But the pen hesitated over the paper, ink pooling strangely, letters forming slower than her thoughts. She wrote one sentence before stopping. "The lane is being remembered." A knock sounded at her door. It was the child. They stood calmly on her porch, barefoot again, eyes reflecting the soft glow from the streetlights. "It's happening faster," the child said. "What is?" Hannah asked. "The sorting." Hannah knelt to meet their gaze. Who stayed? Who changed? Who was always meant to leave? Hannah's chest tightened. "And me?" The child smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, still undecided. Behind them, the unfamiliar house glowed steadily, each window lit now, warm and inviting, and far too watchful.